What's up everyone and welcome back to the MMA Talk. Today, let's get started with Whittaker has stepped in to defend Khamzat Chimaev and Islam Makhachev after both fighters faced backlash from fans who labeled their recent title-winning performances as boring. Despite each of them dominating their championship bouts from start to finish, the absence of a dramatic stoppage led some in the MMA community to criticize the style of their victories. Whittaker strongly disagreed with that narrative and took time on his latest podcast episode to set the record straight. According to Whittaker, fans often underestimate the level of skill required to control another world-class fighter for nearly 25 minutes. He explained that when athletes compete at the championship level, shutting down an elite opponent in every phase of the fight is not only impressive, it is extremely rare. Whittaker emphasized that domination at that level is far more difficult than most viewers realize, especially when it is sustained across multiple rounds against fighters who are themselves champions or elite contenders. He noted that what Chimaev and Makhachev accomplished is something the UFC has seen only a handful of times throughout its entire history. Whittaker also highlighted the bubble effect within MMA, where fans begin to treat extraordinarily high-level grappling as routine simply because they see it from the very best athletes. He encouraged fans to rewatch the fights and study the small, technical details in the grappling exchanges, calling them tutorial-level displays of mastery. For him, witnessing fighters maintain positional control, neutralize threats, and execute complex grappling sequences for nearly the entire championship duration is not something to criticize, it is something to appreciate. He also pushed back against casual comparisons to street fights, joking that if someone can hold you down and control you for 25 straight minutes in any environment, you clearly lost. In MMA, he argued, that level of dominance reflects years of training, strategy, and physical discipline. As for what comes next, Chimaev is expected to return after April 2026 for a major middleweight bout against Nassourdine Imavov. Meanwhile, Islam Makhachev, now the first Russian two-division champion, is weighing his next move. His options include a super fight with Ilia Topuria or a welterweight showdown with contenders such as Ian Garry or Kamaru Usman, depending on how the divisions unfold. Before we jump into the next story, we have a small favor to ask. If you're enjoying the content, please give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell icon. It really helps us out, and ensures you'll never miss an update. Move on to another news. Islam Makhachev recently spoke with a Russian outlet, offering rare insight into his future plans, potential super fights, and the state of the welterweight division. During the interview, the two-division champion addressed three major topics: a possible return to lightweight, a much-discussed showdown with Ilia Topuria, and who he believes is genuinely next in line for his 170-pound title. Makhachev made one point very clear: moving back down to 155 pounds is highly unlikely unless the UFC presents a significant financial incentive. He explained that he is no longer the young athlete who could make the lightweight cut without severe strain. According to Makhachev, every weight cut takes a noticeable toll on his body now, and returning to lightweight would require him to drain himself in ways that are no longer sustainable. Because of this, he said the UFC would need to make a major offer for him to even consider the Topuria fight at 155 pounds. Otherwise, he sees his future firmly rooted at welterweight. When discussing his next welterweight challenger, Makhachev said the title picture is finally starting to come into focus. He noted that there are realistically 3 or 4 legitimate contenders, and he expects the UFC to finalize his opponent within the next 2 weeks. While he did not name a clear frontrunner, he acknowledged several possibilities. One of those is Ian Garry, whose recent performance at UFC Qatar drew mixed reactions. Makhachev said Garry did not surprise him personally, but he admitted that if Garry managed to impress the UFC brass, that alone could elevate him into the top spot for the title opportunity. Makhachev added that the promotion's reaction often matters as much as the performance itself. He also addressed the status of Shavkat Rakhmonov. While acknowledging Shavkat as a dangerous and deserving contender, Makhachev pointed out that Rakhmonov has been sidelined for over a year due to injuries. According to him, it is difficult to justify an immediate title shot for a fighter who has been inactive for that long. Still, he made it clear that if Shavkat returns healthy and the UFC selects him, Makhachev has absolutely no issue taking that fight. Overall, Islam made it known that he is ready for any challenge, at 170, on his terms, and without compromising his health. Move on to another news. Dana White has officially responded to the heated altercation between Khamzat Chimaev and Ian Garry during UFC Qatar Fight Week, an incident that quickly became the biggest headline of the entire event. What initially appeared to be a lighthearted heated interaction captured on camera turned into a genuine physical confrontation within seconds, surprising fans and staff who witnessed it. According to multiple sources and footage from the fighter hotel, the situation began when Ian Garry approached Chimaev from behind in what he intended to be a playful, friendly greeting. However, Garry grabbed Chimaev much more forcefully than necessary, and the undefeated Chechen immediately sensed disrespect. As Garry walked away, Chimaev slapped him firmly on the back, still maintaining a friendly facade, but with clear aggression behind the gesture. Garry turned around, words were exchanged, and Chimaev escalated the moment by pushing him while warning that he would mess him up. Security quickly intervened before the exchange could develop into something far more serious. Staff members separated the two fighters and attempted to calm the tension before it spread through the hotel. Dana White has now addressed the situation publicly, acknowledging growing frustration among UFC officials regarding these repeated hotel hallway incidents. He noted that this type of confrontation has been happening, card after card, often with Chimaev at the center of attention. White revealed that the UFC matchmakers, in particular, are becoming increasingly irritated, citing many different reasons for their concern. White also hinted at undisclosed backstage problems involving Chimaev and Garry, saying that a lot more happened behind the scenes than what the public has seen. He did not elaborate on the details but implied the situation was more chaotic than the surface interaction suggested. He admitted that the UFC did not manage the situation as well as they should have, acknowledging that preventing such incidents remains a challenge. Meanwhile, Ian Garry is coming off the biggest win of his career after defeating Belal Muhammad. Riding a two-fight winning streak over top contenders, he has been aggressively campaigning for a title shot and repeatedly calling out Islam Makhachev in interviews. The altercation with Chimaev only adds more intensity to his growing presence in the welterweight title picture. Move on to another news. Max Holloway has finally opened up about why he isn't rushing to be part of the historic White House event that so many UFC fighters are campaigning to join. Although the idea itself is monumental and the exposure would be enormous, Max made it clear that one factor outweighs all the hype: his family. According to Holloway, the event is expected to allow only around 5,000 fans on the White House lawn. That limitation immediately raised concerns for him, because it would mean his family might not even be able to attend. For a fighter who has built his career with his loved ones present every step of the way, that's an emotional deal-breaker. Holloway explained that he has grown accustomed to having his family sitting close to the octagon, supporting him through every major moment. The idea of competing on one of the biggest stages in UFC history without them nearby doesn't sit right with him. Still, he acknowledged that if the UFC wants him on the card, he would accept the opportunity out of respect for how significant the moment would be for the sport. He simply isn't obsessing over it the way others are. For Max, family comes first, always. Fresh off his massive win over Dustin Poirier, Holloway is now focused on securing a rematch with Charles Oliveira. A victory there would immediately thrust the winner back into the lightweight title conversation. Meanwhile, the championship picture is becoming increasingly interesting. A showdown between Ilia Topuria and Arman Tsarukyan suddenly feels far more realistic than it did just weeks ago. Tsarukyan is coming off another impressive victory, and with Topuria expected to return in February, many fans are already labeling Arman as the #1 contender. The timing seems perfectly aligned for a high-stakes matchup. Holloway also weighed in on recent performances across the UFC landscape, including Arman's win over Dan Hooker at UFC Qatar and Ian Garry's statement victory over Belal Muhammad, results that have shaken up both the lightweight and welterweight divisions. As Max continues to recover from injury, he hopes to return as early as March or April, but if the UFC chooses to hold him for the June White House card, the wait would be significantly longer than he prefers. Move on to another news. Conor McGregor has officially announced his return after undergoing what he describes as a life-altering therapeutic experience in Mexico. In a detailed message shared on X, McGregor revealed that he participated in an intensive psychedelic-based treatment designed to address depersonal trauma, an experience he says fundamentally changed and ultimately saved his life. According to McGregor, the journey began after connecting with a team of forward-thinking physicians affiliated with Stanford University. Their guidance led him to Tijuana, Mexico, where he received ibogaine therapy at a facility featured in the recently released Netflix documentary, In Waves and War. He described the treatment as incredibly powerful, emotionally overwhelming, and profoundly eye-opening. McGregor recounted vivid visions during the experience, including what he believed to be a direct confrontation with his own mortality. He said he witnessed how close he was to a tragic fate and how devastating that loss would have been for his children. He described an out-of-body perspective, first looking down on himself, then visualizing the view from inside a coffin. The emotional weight of those moments, he said, forced him to confront the consequences of his lifestyle and past decisions. The UFC star expressed that the experience took an intensely spiritual turn. He described encountering the Holy Trinity, seeing Jesus descend a staircase of white marble, and receiving what he interpreted as a divine coronation. McGregor stated that his brain, heart, and soul felt healed, and that he remained under the effects of the treatment for 36 continuous hours before finally resting. Upon waking, he said he felt like his true self for the first time in years. McGregor called the treatment worth its weight in gold, acknowledging its emotional difficulty but crediting it with saving not only his life but also the well-being of his family. He thanked supporters, fans, friends, teammates, and loved ones for their encouragement and prayers, saying they played a vital role in his recovery. With renewed clarity and purpose, McGregor declared that he now moves forward guided by faith, gratitude, and a sense of responsibility for the second chance he believes he has been given. Move on to another news. Khamzat Chimaev has escalated his feud with Ian Machado Garry by issuing a new, heated threat just days after their tense backstage confrontation at UFC Qatar. The clash between the two erupted behind the scenes when Chimaev aggressively shoved Garry, claiming Garry had touched him in a disrespectful manner. Although both fighters addressed the incident during their post-fight press conferences, it quickly became clear that the tension was far from resolved. Shortly after the event, Chimaev took his frustration to social media. In a tweet that has since been deleted, but was captured and re-shared by Championship Rounds on X, the reigning middleweight champion extended the conflict beyond the octagon and into the digital arena. The message revealed that Chimaev had no intention of letting the altercation slide quietly. In his post, he directed a harsh warning toward Garry, writing, "White boy, you will not survive 1 minute in my presence." Though the message was quickly removed, it spread rapidly among MMA fans and media outlets, adding fuel to an already volatile rivalry. This latest outburst highlights the growing hostility between the two fighters, who now appear locked in a personal dispute that goes beyond competitive trash talk. Garry, coming off a significant victory and climbing quickly in the rankings, has been one of the most talked about fighters in the sport. His confidence and outspoken nature have earned him both supporters and critics, and Chimaev clearly falls into the latter category. The exchange also raises questions about whether the UFC will address the online confrontation or allow the rivalry to continue building organically. For many fans, the intensity surrounding this feud only increases interest in a potential future matchup. Stylistically, the fight could generate major headlines, but the personal animosity now brewing between the two may bring even more attention. Even with the deleted post, the message has already ignited widespread discussion in the MMA community. For Chimaev, it signals that the backstage shove was merely the beginning. For Garry, it marks yet another high-profile conflict as he continues to push toward title contention. As both men remain vocal and unapologetically combative, this rivalry is likely far from over. Move on to another news. Darren Till has ignited a new wave of controversy in the MMA community after unleashing a passionate and scathing critique of Ian Machado Garry. The comments came in the wake of Garry's heated backstage altercation with Khamzat Chimaev at UFC Qatar, an incident that has dominated headlines and sparked strong reactions across the sport. Till, who has a long history of friendship and rivalry with several top fighters, made it clear that he believes Garry's behavior during the confrontation was disingenuous. Posting on X, Till began by acknowledging Garry's undeniable talent inside the octagon. He praised Garry's skills, describing him as an exceptional fighter with the potential to achieve great things. But the compliments ended there. Till argued that while Garry's abilities cannot be questioned, his personality and public demeanor are an entirely different story. In a blunt message, Till wrote, "Ian Garry is such a good fighter, man, but by God is he possibly the fakest human on earth. Fake beyond all beliefs. It's so hard to like him." Till went on to share that he had personally struggled to warm up to Garry, even saying he had sat in his bedroom with his own little demons, trying to convince himself to see Garry in a more positive light. According to Till, Garry's interaction with Chimaev felt staged and insincere. He claimed that when Garry turned away during the confrontation, you could see he was scared. Till compared Chimaev's personality to his own, saying that both men react directly when confronted and don't tolerate disrespect. The criticism didn't stop there. Till accused Garry of consistently behaving in a way that alienates others in the sport, calling him unlikable, and referencing an incident in which Garry allegedly criticized Leon Edwards' performance. He also claimed that Garry had been removed from multiple gyms, suggesting that the issues stemmed from his attitude rather than his fighting ability. Till's final words were some of his harshest, stating that despite Garry's talent, he remains, in Till's view, a proper fake. The remarks quickly sparked debate among fans, journalists, and fighters, adding yet another layer to the ongoing friction between Garry and several notable figures in the MMA world.